A native of Dallas, Mr. Perot graduated from St. Mark's School in Texas in 1977, earned a bachelor's degree in business administration from Vanderbilt in 1981. He currently serves as chairman of the Perot Group, which manages the various Perot family interests that include real estate, oil, gas, and financial investments. In addition, Mr. Perot is chairman of Hillwood, which he founded in 1988. Hillwood is ranked among the top 10 real estate developers in the United States and is recognized for its high-profile projects. Please welcome Ross Perot Jr.
Steve, thank you. And Steve, thank you very much. It's great to be here this morning, and I'll talk a little bit. I've been asked to talk a little bit about trends going on around the world, what we're seeing around the world, but I'm going to quickly come back to the United States and then certainly focus on Texas, because Ken is right. This state, and Ken, I think it's more than just taxes. It's also, there's an optimism in Texas. We have very good political leadership in Texas, and we have low regulation. And so the taxes are important, but also economic freedom is just as important, and we have that in Texas. And a statistic I love to hear, that's a great statistic from Richard Fisher at the Federal Reserve, is if you look at all the jobs, Texas has generated more jobs in the nation than the rest of the states combined in the past decade. It just shows you the growth and the strength of what we have. 1,200 people a day are moving into our state. 200 people a day are moving in from California to Texas. And so we have a great foundation. We have a wonderful future in front of us. And basically you can go all over the world and look at projects all over the world, which we have the good fortune to be able to do. At the end of the day, you do come back to Texas and realize that this is the place to grow, this is the place to invest. And we're optimistic. At Hillwood, we certainly are growing, we're hiring people, we're investing. I realize there is uncertainty in the country, but I think there's also a point where we're all a little bit numb to it. We do not have good political leadership in Washington, but we have very good political leadership at the state level in the nation. If you look at the top 15 growing states in the nation, 12 of the top 15 are run by Republican governors and Republican House and Senate. The Republican economic freedom message works at the state level, and then the national party is going to have to get that message up to the federal level to get us focused on how we bring our economy back. But if you look at Texas, you look at the growth, we're excited. Quickly, if you look around the world, as I mentioned earlier, it is amazing to watch the economies of the world where we're active in China, we're involved in China, and China certainly has the growth rates, but a lot of economists write about and political leaders talk about, and business leaders, I'm kind of amazed they envy the China model, which, I don't really like the China model. The top-down driven Communist Party model, they've had a fabulous 30-year run, and I work on projects with the Communist Party, and I get to 2 or 3 times a year I'm in Beijing working with the party leadership, and I'm with the U.S. counterpart. I'm with the U.S. political parties and the Communist Party together. So it's a wonderful window to watch our political leaders work with the Chinese political leaders. And you sort of wish all Americans could see our political leadership working with the Chinese, because the Republicans and the Democrats, and this group is led by Madeleine Albright. Madeleine Albright's on the Democratic side, and Ambassador Rich Williamson runs the Republican side. But when you see both of these former ambassadors or secretaries of state on the field representing our nation, they do a fabulous job. And Madeleine Albright will she'll look at the leaders of the Communist Party and she goes, when will you become a democracy? When will you have a real election and let the Chinese people vote for their leadership? And the first time she brought it up, they really did lock up. Because if the people, you imagine the people we meet with are hardcore, true blue Communist Party. There's no deviation in their beliefs. And she looks at them, she says, you've done a marvelous job. You've given the country great economic growth. But until you become democratic, you'll never reach your full potential. And she goes, why don't you have elections today because you probably would win. And it's amazing to watch the conversation, amazing to watch the evolution through the years to where both sides get to know each other better and better, but that's a strategic flaw in China that I don't think we pay enough attention to, is their political leadership and how long can the Communist Party survive. And it's a question that I ask our political leaders, I ask our military leaders, and in our planning scenarios, as a nation, do we plan at all for the disintegration of the Communist Party? And people say, well, it can't happen, but Tiananmen Square, they almost lost power at Tiananmen Square. And so I think from a planning level, because you also, always, look around, we've seen enough traumatic events in the past decade that we all have to ask, well, what's the next big traumatic event? What's that next black swan? What's that event that no one can see that could happen that will surprise us? Something is always going to surprise us, and I think it could be China. It's such a strong economy, has a big impact on the world. The relationships with the Chinese and the United States are critical, and everything we can do to keep bridging the relationships between the two countries is very important. But that's one that I would watch, and I believe it's a flaw. We work in China, we enjoy our relationships with the Chinese, but that to me, India, we've been in India since, that's another large economy, over 1 billion population. It's growing, but we've been in India since 1996. We've had great partnerships in India. India is democracy to the extreme, over 200 political parties, and it's very difficult to get things done, but the Indian model is a sustainable model, but I think it'll continue to be, it'll muddle along, it won't reach its full potential because of basically just strategic issues in India. Europe, for sure, has had, to me, it's strategic problems. Now, we at Hillwood are focused on Europe, and we think there are great industrial opportunities in Europe, and we're putting programs together now to grow into Europe because it's probably a good time. As we look at our competitors, a lot of people have pulled out of Europe, and our philosophy is if people are pulling out of an area, we have a tendency to go in, especially if you see good deal flow and you have good relationships. And so, but Europe overall, big picture, they're also going to muddle. They have such a demographic problem in Europe and a over-regulation problem in Europe, an over-taxation problem in Europe, that I believe Europe will, if they can, and there's a little bit of a false optimism in Europe today. They really think they act like they think their problems are fixed. The debt problems are not fixed in Europe, and I think they're going to have some tough years in front of them until they get back to where I started with Texas, economic freedom, until you free the people to go to work and build their businesses and raise their families without overregulation. I don't think Europe will come back. If you look at North America, North America is the great trading bloc in the world. And if you look at Canada, the Canadians have structurally fixed their entitlement problems. They have a great commodity boom going on in Canada, a huge amount of oil and gas wealth in Canada. And so our neighbors to the north have a strong economy, strong banking system, and the Canadians came through this economic recession in far better shape than most countries. Then you go to Mexico. Look at the growth rates in Mexico. And our team, Bob Vicente led the team that did the Verity transaction last year, and we purchased a private REIT that had U.S. warehouses and a lot of distribution centers in Mexico, and that gave us a good view into Mexico, and we saw the growth potential in Mexico. Mexico's growing, and Mexico has a balanced budget amendment. And so Mexico, Mexico had their difficult problems, they fixed their problems, now they're growing, and so you take the birth rate in Mexico, the labor force in Mexico, that is a huge part of North America. Then you have the United States. So of the three, the United States is a laggard, in my opinion. But the United States can come through these problems as soon as we're willing to face up to reality and really fix the problems. And I was in Washington last week with the Real Estate Roundtable, and we talked, about 8 senators came to talk to us, Democrats and Republicans. Then we went to the White House to visit with the White House. And it was amazing. If we all read the paper, we all watch the news, but when you actually talk to our leaders, there is a sense of optimism with the Republicans and the Democrats that perhaps they now realize we can no longer kick the can down the road and that we're going to have fundamental structural change in the United States. And that's going to we have to go back to a low tax environment, low regulation environment. You look what Reagan did. And I'm amazed somebody didn't pull out the Reagan game plan of low tax, low regulation, and optimism. And you unify the country and you pull the country together. We work together with the vision because this country has so much embedded wealth. And Ken talked about it. This energy boom is staggering. I mean, but again, what drove the energy boom was the private sector. No one saw the natural gas revolution coming in Washington. And it started right here in Fort Worth, Texas with the Barnett Shale. And it started with small oil companies and entrepreneurs that had a dream, that risked their capital to figure out how to get the gas out. And they developed the fracking technology that allowed this huge revolution to occur in our nation, but also all over the world. But why do we keep having this great energy boom? Why do these new ideas keep starting in the United States? It's pretty simple, because in the United States, who owns the minerals? The private sector. This is one of the few nations in the world where the private sector gets to own the minerals of a nation. Most nations, the minerals are controlled by the federal government. That's why you don't see these great revolutions. That's why you don't see these great ideas, because it's a big bureaucracy. It's not the entrepreneurs. So it's the entrepreneurial oil man, the Texas oil man. And we work in the oil business around the world, and every oil rig I go to all over the world, there's always a Texan somewhere. If I don't find him right off, I look around and say, where's the Texan? I know they're going to be here. There's going to be some great Texan on this rig, and there always are there. And so it's that spirit, that private enterprise spirit we have in the state that gave us this great oil revolution in Texas. And certainly, North Dakota is doing great with the Bakken. But what's going on in the Eagle Ford in South Texas is a phenomenal boom. And then my friends out in Midland, the boom in Midland it's a quiet boom, but they say it's the greatest oil boom they've ever had in Midland, Texas. And my friends that live there, you can't get into the restaurants, you can't get into the hotels. I was talking to a friend last night from Midland that said now we have traffic, unfortunately. They never had traffic. But you've got this great boom of taking this new unconventional technology and running it through old oil fields. So you're going through oil fields that the experts, I'm always wary of experts, Ken, so I apologize. I'm always worried what an expert says we're out of oil, what an expert says we're out of gas. You need to go bet against that guy. Because certainly in the United States, we'll figure out a way to continue to find these great ideas. Then you go to Silicon Valley, look at the social media revolution, look at that great entrepreneurial spirit that you have in Silicon Valley. And so you have this spirit. And so if you look at this energy, let me talk about energy for a little bit longer. The energy revolution, I read an article last week that said the natural gas being this cheap is giving the nation over $100 billion a year stimulus because of low natural gas prices. And then if we get back to just a normal housing market, and we're optimistic on housing, that's another well over $100 billion a year stimulus that will be coming from housing. And so you're seeing the private sector, as it gets back on our feet. I think, as Ken said, this country really does want to come back. The American people really want to grow, and we are optimistic about that growth. So what are we, I'll talk about the Hillwood team for a little bit. Certainly focused on Texas. The Alliance Texas program continues to grow. Bill Burton and Mike Berry, I saw both here, both of our leaders in Alliance Texas. We're developing every product type at Alliance. Our retail programs are very strong. Our multifamily programs are strong. We have new retail being built, new multifamily being built. Fred Balda has started another 1,000-acre residential project in the Alliance Texas corridor called Harvest. And we purchased about 1,300 acres last year around the Alliance Texas area because in our world, it was a great time to reinvest in that corridor, the 35 West corridor. The growth rates on 35 West are some of the strongest in the nation. If you look at the Alliance corridor today, the city of Hazlet is on the west side of Alliance. It's the second fastest growing city in the nation. The third fastest growing city in the nation is Hazlet, Texas, on the east side of Alliance. Alliance is now the largest foreign trade zone in the United States, and we have a huge amount of growth. Our client base is very optimistic. We're very excited about the build-to-suit business. I'm not sure, can we talk about our build-to-suit business? A little bit, but if you read the newspaper, you'll see the build-to-suit business. We've got the deals we got going on in Alliance right now. I want to make sure we don't talk about things we're not supposed to yet. And also Mike is very focused now on building spec again at Alliance. So as I said, all product types are growing at Alliance. We're optimistic and we'll start to put more spec on the ground as we lease up our existing portfolio. If you look at our residential program, certainly we're focused on the Texas markets. But it's interesting in residential, I feel like we've been very aggressive the past 3 years buying in the residential market, and Fred has bought some portfolios that have taken us all over the nation in residential and given us a good feel for residential trends around the country. We continue to invest in Texas. We have large projects in Houston that hopefully will get done here in the next month or so, right, Fred? These deals take a while, but I keep telling Fred to hurry. You know, get these deals locked down, because what I've seen, like you've seen, is there's so much money going into real estate. Once you find a good deal, you better grab it. You don't have time to look at good deals any longer. 18 months, 24 months ago, you could stare at it. Today, every deal we look at too long, we lose. And every bid we put in, most of the bids we put in today, certainly on residential, we're losing in Texas because there's so much money flooding into residential in Texas. So we have maybe a good 6-month window. Fred's got a nice pipeline for 6 months on some large projects that we'll take down, and that'll give us a great foundation for Texas growth for the next 10 years. And as Ken said, in our world, uncertainty is very difficult because when we're making 10 to 15-year bets on these residential programs. But at the end of the day, we believe in Texas, we believe in our leadership, and I believe that the American consumer will still want to have a wonderful home in a wonderful community. And if we build the best communities at the best price point in Texas, it's a safe bet from our perspective. Fred is also growing. We're very focused now, California. We've been in California since 1990. We sort of ride the waves up and down with California. We've had a very successful industrial program in California. We've had very successful residential projects in California. And so we're wading back into California with our residential team. And we have started buying land in San Jose to take advantage of the social media boom. We've teamed up with some very good California home builders. And this is a classic story of good home builders that have locked up land at a basis of a couple of years ago. They went through their entitlements. They didn't have the equity to get their deals launched. And so we came in, teamed up with them, brought the equity to help them get launched. But I'm amazed also in California. Now in California, we had a little bit of time to look at deals. There weren't a year ago, there weren't a lot of people chasing California residential. Today, it really is almost on fire. And I think we might have 6 months to 9 months in California to do a few more deals before the pricing gets out of control. The public home builders now have so much money, and there's so much demand, and they're so far behind on their deliveries and keeping up with the demand that as a land developer, we certainly have our public partners are demanding more and more lots faster, and Fred's got about, I think, 600 lots under development right now, mostly in the Texas market. So we're excited about Texas, about residential in California, but that window will close also fairly quickly. If you look at our industrial team around the nation, 2012 was a very strong year for us. We formed a joint venture with Brookfield. We purchased about 10 million square feet of space last year. Well, thank Cushman & Wakefield and all the brokers in the room that help us, find our deals and help us get these deals closed. Thank you very much, because we need you. We need your deal flow. We've got a fund that we've got to fill out. And then thank you when we're selling buildings, because we buy and sell at the same time, and thank you for the buildings that you've helped us sell in 2012. And we'll sell a few more buildings this year. But as we build the industrial portfolio, we have a great acquisition team with Brookfield buying buildings. We're buying buildings all over the United States. And then if you look at our development business, in 2008, we completed about 8 million square feet of industrial space. 09, we were zero. 10 was zero. 11, we started again. We built about 4.5 million square feet of space in 12. We're on track to probably do another 4 to 5 million square feet of industrial space this year with the development group. And we're seeing our clients come back, and we're seeing, again, back to the money. The institutions really want the product type. And I thought normally at the end of the cycle, institutions would pay us to build empty buildings, and we'd sell them empty buildings. But I was a little surprised. We now have institutions paying us again to build empty buildings because there's such a demand for the industrial product around the nation. Certainly Texas is the home of our industrial program, but we've had great partnership projects in California. And we have a model where we team up with cities, and we're seeing in California, we had our 10th year anniversary at San Bernardino this year. It was the old Norton Air Force Base we redeveloped for the city of San Bernardino. We've had a very good run at Norton, and this is where we're doing well over 1 million square feet for Amazon now, the Norton Air Force Base project. But I was amazed when I went to that 10th anniversary how when times are tough, even in California, these cities really put on their game face. Cities that used to be hard to deal with, the mayor almost meets you at the door with a building permit. They need taxes, they need jobs. And so San Bernardino has always been a great city, but we now see great deal flow from California cities that have land that they need to monetize. And they need a professional developer with a track record to help them develop out their city. So we see great deal flow in that area. And then even our residential programs. We're now focusing on downtown San Francisco. We've got projects in San Francisco, which I never thought I'd be in San Francisco. As difficult it is to develop in San Francisco, again, but it's the same story. Because of where the economy is, they're so far behind on housing. They need the taxes, they need affordable homes, or what they call affordable homes. Here it'd be expensive housing. That you're seeing opportunities in San Francisco that the general investment market still has stayed away from, even though I think they'll probably quickly start to fill those voids. So at Hillwood, we're hiring, we're growing, we're optimistic. There is uncertainty in the market, but I think, as I said earlier, you sort of become numb to the political uncertainty, the political confusion, and I think you're going to have that confusion for a while in Washington, but you've got to figure out how to grow your business. You've got to figure out how to take good care of your teammates, take care of the communities you work in, and no matter how bad it is or how confusing it is, there's always an opportunity. There's always something you can do in an economy like ours, a $15 trillion economy in the United States. There's always a deal out there that can be done. The question is, do you have the work ethic to find it? Do you have the team that can find it? And then when you find that deal, you've got to execute. And that's the big issue that we continue to push, as I said, with our teams, is when you find it, you've got to get it done. And on your clients, if you've got leases, as all good brokers know, timing can kill a deal. If you've got a deal, you've got a client, you've got to close them, because you never quite know if they're there and they want to do it. Get it done. Don't overthink it, because you never quite know what they're going to do in Washington again that's going to scare people. And, Brad, every 90 days they're probably going to scare us with something, unfortunately, but we've got to get through that. Okay, that is we'll take, I think, Kim, we're going to take questions and answers. Thank you very much.